All right, welcome back. This is AR's Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am AR Metabile, and I am joined by the dynamic duo of anthologies, Elizabeth and Jonathan. How are you guys? How are you
Hello.
guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. They were coming to talk to
Great.
us about their latest work, The Collective Darkness. I actually have that and your website up on a separate tab so we can like share it and like introduce people to that. Could you tell us where to find you, social media, anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you search on Instagram, it's Elizabeth Suggs. That's Suggs author, or Elizabeth Ann Suggs on Facebook and Elizabeth A Suggs Twitter. I'm sure if you just Google Elizabeth Suggs, you'll find my social. But Collective Darkness is also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I won't steal your thunder, Jonathan. You talk about your stuff.
Well, you still have other thunder you forgot about. So she also has
There's so
another
many things.
website. It's editingme.com. That's editingmee.com. You say that all the time when you read this.
I know.
Anyway, and mine is the best way to find me is Instagram. I'm on there a lot too, and my handle is illusions with an A underscore of underscore grandeur. Good luck spelling that. Underscore. You should have made it easier to spell. Underscore. So.
Yeah.
And I'm also on Twitter, but like, I'm hardly on there. Sorry.
No, I actually did have editing me with two E's.
Oh, yes.
I had that was the second tab I have open. I'm gonna share in just to have you guys introduced to everything. I actually have I didn't mean to have your Instagrams up there too. I'm sorry I didn't have that, but I'll add that in a minute. So without any further ado, I did have a chance to read a little bit of Collective Darkness, and my God, Fear by I'm sorry, the name is Edward Suggs. 17 years old.
Yeah.
My God, one of the best horror short stories I've ever read, and easily top 5 short stories period I've ever read. And the forward of just describing of how of curating all these things together. How did this start? How did you get this idea?
To create Collective Darkness, the anthology?
Yeah, how did you get the idea of start, curating all these people, and how did you start choosing? How was that process?
Well, it was a process, happened about 2 years ago. It's a very long process. I had never made an anthology before. This was before Collective Tales publishing was a thing. And so it's mostly just my editing and formatting and business. And I had created a writing group. And everyone was just like, because I would in my writing group, we would do like these focus writings where you just write together. And critiques and presentations, and people kept saying we should make an anthology. We should do this stuff, and I was like, okay, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. And
easy.
Yeah, so easy. No. But yeah, so with that, I started to acquire people over the years, or over the 2 years, and then Jonathan came around during the second year. And he was awesome. Yeah, he's been so awesome. And then eventually, we created Collective Tales Publishing, and that's kind of from there we want to create more anthologies in that same mindset. But instead of doing, because I try to be fair, but I did handpick some of the authors for Collective Darkness. But with Collective Fantasy, anthology that's coming out, we're doing it. We only had blind judges, and I like that idea with blind judges. And sometimes, if there's someone if we know they're really good, obviously we'll ask them to come on. But I like the idea of blind judging because it's, there's no question if it's like a really good story. People you'll get in definitely because it's a good story over bias or something.
It's a meritocracy.
Can I chime in about that though? So you might have recognized the name Edward Suggs, right? She's maybe related to this person, but that story actually won a local award. So he got in on merit because that's a great story.
Yeah, it wasn't just because he was my brother.
And not just by being related to the
Oh,
publisher.
Yeah.
oh no. Honestly, it was so good that actually made me think the opposite. Truly, truly. It made me
That's
think
awesome.
that yeah, it made me think that he had to have been completely unrelated. It just had to have been a weird coincidence because no bullshit. Truly one of I mean, well, I don't want to get too much deeply into the quotes, but there were certain things that as I was reading it, my toes were curling. And I remember I like
Ooh.
sat back and I was like, oh my God. It was to the point that it made me want to take like a cold shower and rethink my life as an author. I was like, if this kid's doing that at 7, you know, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it was no coincidence that we decided to put that story first too.
Yeah.
And what I was going was is like she's at the very end of the story and he's at the beginning, so we've kind of made like a Sug sandwich with
Suggs Witch.
the two siblings.
oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So you guys are really into horror. Something that I've actually had the chance of speaking with a couple horror authors in the podcast, and one common thing that we kind of like keep on going at is the idea of what horror is, right? So in the movie you have the jump scare, you have that common tactic, but that doesn't translate too well into literature, right? So like more of what horror is and like what Stephen King is king of is more conceptual things, right? The reason Freddy scared you as a kid wasn't because it wasn't just because he had a scary face and like some claws for hands. It was the idea that he could slap you in your dreams, right? The place that you were scared, the place that when you were scared and you were in your bed and you weren't sure if that thing in the corner was a jacket or if it was a monster with 4 eyes looking at you, you going into your dreams, that was your hideaway. And the idea that somebody could get into that was what the fear was. That was the thing that made you leave the theater and be like, oh shit, what's going on? So like horror is more of like the conceptual thing. And that's something that I saw immediately in Feast. Is that something that you seek it, that you immediately like sought after and looking for authors for this?
Yeah, I really like that same idea, that psychological horror. And we do have like a variety of different horror in Collective Darkness, but I like there is a theme on that psychological horror because it is that we have one about a mom and a kid and like that separate from Feast, but another one kind of that dynamic and who's actually the culprit and if it's someone else or something, and it's just like that psychological if kind of like that vulnerability, like with your dreams. Yes, I really like that. And Jonathan can attest to the darkness between you. He's been working on those submissions, and tell us about those horrors that you.
Yeah, so I mean, Liz originally came up with this theme of darkness, right? And it sounds really broad in general, but it actually kind of works because to me, horror is about tapping into those fears. And what's the biggest fear to me, I think, is the unknown. And so
Yes.
what represents the unknown best is darkness, because you can't see what's there, like what's in that corner, what's underneath the car, what's that noise, like so the unknown. And so we've decided to carry forward the theme, I think, a little bit because we have Little Darkness, which was our flash fiction anthology that's on an ebook, and then we have coming out next year we have The Darkness Between, which is just a smaller collection that's going to be in between the bigger ones, and we're going to keep going with the theme of darkness because we feel like it's so untapped. There's so much more to explore.
Yes, I'm such a scaredy cat when it comes to darkness too because of that unknown. I don't know what my problem is, but for some reason I love horror, like the scary books and games, especially when it talks about the darkness because it's like it's so much scarier than just watching something because it's you're the one kind of in control even when it's reading because it's like you have to be the one turning the pages and I don't know. That's my favorite thing.
Definitely. We were actually talking a little bit about dystopian games before we started recording. Have you guys ever played Destiny in that scheme of darkness?
I have not.
Well, like they have one of their big arcing like bad guys is like this is simply just the darkness. It is like this entity that darkness is a living, breathing entity instead of just this a simple shadow reflection of the sun. It's actually a very like awesome like concept of like a corruption and things like that. Well, speaking more of horror and that whole like scheme, how did you get into Are you huge fans of horror? What was
Yes.
the idea? Okay.
Yeah,
What is
I am.
what is your top five? Like what is the thing that got you into horror?
Top five, as in like
It could be
books
film,
and games
books.
or
Yeah,
movies.
yeah,
Okay.
whatever.
For me, some of the top five. Well, so H.P. Lovecraft, for books, like some short stories,
Definitely.
Edgar Allan Poe stuff. And I like that classical horror just because it's, they use a different set of plot points that sometimes startle you in a different way. But for games, um, yeah, we'll just do the 2 and 3. So the games like Outlast, Soma, and Amnesia are all my or three favorite horror games, and they all have to do like with dealing in the darkness all the time. And while it's not the same as like Destiny, where it's that the darkness is a thing. It is that like in Amnesia and Soma, it's almost like a darkness of the mind because there are just dark spaces. Like there are memories that are just not there. You have to uncover them through this puzzle. But at the same time, there's like some horrific stuff happening, and you can't really fight back. You're just a normal human, and so you have to run away most of the time. And that's what makes it really scary because I do fight in video games, like the normal, but the scariest ones are the ones you have to hide and run away because that would be me in real life.
Yeah, BioShock I think is top.
Bioshock,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. One is just insane. I remember playing that in the darkness and being genuinely like, oh my god, I don't know if I can keep going.
Yes.
What about you, Jonathan? Do you have a top five of horror?
Well, let's see. Okay, for movies, you got The Shining and
Shining.
Cabin in the Woods, American Werewolf in London. Those are some of my favorites. Event Horizon. Okay, video game, probably I would go with Resident Evil 4, the one with the cult.
Resident Evil 4.
It's kind of different.
Yeah.
And my favorite part of that is at the end, when you beat it, you get to replay it, but you have unlimited bazooka. So I'm no longer scared anymore. I'm just blowing everything
Defeats
up.
the whole purpose.
And you know where all the bad guys are. I know, but I like overcome. That game scares me.
Resident Evil 1 scares you more.
And then,
oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I can't play that one. It's scary. Because you don't have any guns. You're like,
Resident Evil is really scary. But what were you saying about Cabin in the Woods?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Like, please keep going with the Resident Evil thing. But Cabin in the Woods has to be one of my favorite horror movies. I was actually just talking about it with a friend of mine yesterday. It's the way it almost like picks apart what horror is to its essence.
Okay, what I love about it is it feels like a love letter to horror fans, right? Because it's got all of these little cliches, but they're like not cliches, they're like new. And you see it's like almost like horror porn because you're in that room filled with all these little relics.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, which one are they going to pick? Ooh, pick that one. Pick that one. And like there's these guys watching it in their like little industrial complex. And they're just like us. They're like, ooh, pick that one. They're betting on it. And it's like, well, this is so meta. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the ending, H.P. Lovecraft.
I guess like talking about that makes me Evil Dead would be another part of my top 5. No, 5 already, but Evil Dead, like number 2 and the second Evil Dead and Army of Darkness. They're all good.
Army of Darkness.
Yes.
I love Army of Darkness.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked you for this is more because I was going to ask you for your inspiration. So what got you into writing? Like how did that come to be? And how did that turn into, all right, I want to start writing horror?
For me, I've always been writing. When I was a little kid, I would write these little short stories about this little girl named Sparkle Teeth because she had very sparkly teeth. She'd go on adventures. So I've always been writing, but for when it became scary, I think honestly, and this is gonna sound, I don't know. Anyway, it was when I was angsty and I was like, just, all those emotions. So that was my way. It first kind of came into poetry and then it came into like really dark stuff because I'd probably say movies were my first horrific inspiration because I was watching scary movies way too young. And I was like, ooh, let's emulate this on the paper. Let's make it all bloody and gory.
Oh, that's funny. I was actually really scared of horror. I didn't start watching horror until like 21. Swear to God.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I started at age 7. I was 7 years old watching The Shining by myself at home. I don't know what's
Did
wrong
you
with my
just have
parents,
to?
but
I think I watched
oh my
Science
gosh, scary.
with is Science the one with Bruce Willis and I See
Yeah.
Dead People, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I watched that with my mother when I was like 9, and I remember I was looking at her like, dude, where are you? Come on. Like, you want me to sleep? What are you thinking? Yeah. I watched cartoons just like solid for years after that. No, but it was my God, because when I started getting into horror, I delved into it. It was one of those things that was like, oh, I don't know what I was missing. And the thing that got me into was Cabin in the Woods and all those things.
Yeah.
But sorry, Jonathan, how that the whole inspiration thing, how
Oh,
did
no,
that
you're good.
delve into for you?
Well, I sort of fell into it. Like I said, I've been watching horror movies since I was a kid, and I like Frankenstein and things like that. But I would never thought of myself as a horror writer. I'm a science fiction writer, even though nobody's ever wanted to publish any of my sci-fi. But in college, I was paid $10 for this horror poem that got published, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I won this writing contest, and okay, it's kind of funny. So it's actually the story that was published in this one, Padra's Ice. So this is probably like 15 years ago, and imagine Twilight is at its peak popularity, and My Little Pony super popular with its comeback. And so they had this writing contest at this sci-fi fantasy horror magazine, and it was you have to contain the phrase "sparkly vampiric pony" and be about the pony. And I'm like, this is silly. And so I'm like, I'm going to write a serious take on this. And so I did, and it won, but it never got published because the contest sort of got canceled. And it just sort of got put away until I met Liz, and she read it, and she's like, I love this. So that's how I got involved. And now I'm writing all these little, I don't know if you call them vignettes, but flash fiction pieces. And I'm like, maybe I am a horror writer, and I have just been resisting this whole time. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Very possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then you took that, and then you started going for Collective Darkness, which was your first go at like an anthology of horror. And now you guys like the whole thing of anthology, so now you're going with the Collective Fantasy as the next one, correct?
Yeah.
How's that going? How's that process?
We also have Little Darkness, which is like a follow-up to Darkness, and that one's got flash fiction and poetry as well.
Yeah.
Liz, you can talk about Collective Fantasy if you want.
Okay. So Collective Fantasy is going to come out in November, but next year. So 2021. And so not this month. But next year, 2021 is November. I just finished getting all the submissions, with I had some blind judges working on those. And now we're in the process of editing. So hopefully I can get it all formatted and, squared away in the next like 5 months, because it is very nice to have the formatting done way early, because I've learned that the hard way. It's okay. Yeah. So
I remember.
Yeah, hopefully in the next and the next little bit, we should have a lot more stuff. We could do a book trailer. I want to do a book trailer for that. Yeah. And it's this one is about illegal or unsavory things. So you'll get we have some, just traditional fantasy, because it's kind of set in the medieval fantasy, but there's the traditional fantasy, but then there's more of a unique take on fantasy. And then mine, I noticed that it's fantasy, but there is a lot of horrific elements in it too. I don't know if you were able to read it, Jonathan.
I do.
But it's there's some horrific things that happen. I think I'm just naturally a horror writer. I can't help it. It's just fun to be scary. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think that's what happened with my story too.
Yeah.
My story for it has a witch, and she does some kind of gory bits, and I think that's actually the best part of the story is the gory part. Would you say that? I don't know.
So visceral.
As far as for subgenres of horror, what is your favorite subgenre of horror? Are you more of you said that you like you're a fan of the psychological stuff, but what is your go-to? Do you like the more gory stuff, ghost related, witch related, paranormal? Well, I guess that's with the ghost stuff.
Well, mostly for me, it really is the psychological, and it's it can be gory, it could have witches, but I really want you to, I don't know how much I can swear on this, but I really want to be messed up in my mind.
No, go ahead.
I want to mind fuck, you know, I want to
okay.
I want to, I just want to get completely just drawn in and just like messed up for weeks. Just thinking like, especially if there's a puzzle or a problem in there that I have to like work out or it like just sticks with me. And that's, yeah, I'm also a book reviewer and on Instagram, and someone gave me their short story collection, and one of the stories, it was so gory and disgusting. It was oh dang it, I'm sorry, I don't have it ready. It's in Shadowy Natures, the horror anthology, and or like in her one of the stories in there, the uncle, that one isn't so gory, but that one is like messed up because it's like through this kid's eyes, through like the uncle who's like this horrific, like this evil guy, and you're like seeing the eyes through this, like seeing the eyes as the child, like moving up through and just like becoming less innocent and moving into something more evil, I guess. So that has stuck with me too. But yeah,
that's awesome. My latest attempt, because like I said, I was never into horror. That was never like a thing. But then when I started to understand like the concept and I started to like it, I did try my hand at it. And the attempt I got at it was a character I had already made. It was like this alien Frankenstein type of thing. And I put it in the mind of the character that he's completely lost. So he has his own previous life previous to being Frankenstein, and he still has flashes of that. But he's in the own like kind of marshes of his mind. So he's kind of like having flashbacks to his like regular life, but then he's getting like sucked back into like the reconstruction, and then he's kind of like zoning into like what he's actually doing, and it's like, you know, a monstrous act, and he's like, but he himself is kind of noble, so he's like, ah, shit, and like goes back to his memory, and it's like kind of going back and forth, and then at the end he relives his death, and he realizes that, you know, he's died multiple times, and he's made this realization endlessly, and like what I try to convey, I don't know, I probably did it horribly, was my voice even cracked there a little bit to confirm it, was that it was like the whole horror that he wasn't in control. He died and it felt like nobly, but like his after death was just like kind of tore to pieces and things like that. I love like that whole psychological like horror, like Get Out. Were you guys a fan of like Get Out or any of those?
Oh my gosh, so good.
Yes. Oh my god. Like just like that feeling of like, oh my, yeah, that it could just like happen to you. Like, oh my god, a person can just do that to me psychologically. Oh my god, therapists will do that.
I mean, I don't know about Liz, but white people being evil, yeah, I think I could understand that. But just kidding.
Oh god, that's awesome. So what are you guys thinking for the future? So you guys are doing the whole anthology. Is that the whole shtick forever? Or are you guys gonna start going into your own novels or like things like that? Or are you gonna keep the partnership going on forever? Are you gonna have your own separate you know, side albums?
Well, can I answer that first? So we have talked about possibly down the road doing some single works like you know, novels and things. We don't have any plans yet, but for right now we do have the next 5 years production cycle planned out. So we're going to have a sci-fi anthology coming out. It's going to be Collective Visions, and then we're going to have a dystopian series called Collective Chaos, and then we're going to cycle back through and do Collective Darkness again, and then Collective Fantasy and so forth. And then we're also doing a fifth one, which is a charity book, which is sort of just all speculative fiction. It's called Collective Humanity. Liz, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So Collective Humanity is an LGBTQ plus and allies group where it deals with the metamorphosis, like coming to yourself, learning about yourself. And that could be in horrific ways. That could be a science fiction way, like Jonathan was saying, with just speculative fiction, dystopia, horror, all that stuff. And all the net proceeds are going to go to a local LGBTQ group here, a nonprofit group. Just because we want to help. But so that
it's
one is
the Royal Court of the Golden Spike Empire, right? Is that the
right? And that one we are open. We have submissions open now, and I believe we have it's 2023 when it's coming, when we'll have it officially released. So, yeah.
And for that one, we're asking for a donation for anyone that submits, which we don't normally do. We're not paying anybody because it's a charitable work, and so to defray the cost of production, so that way there'll be more profit which we can donate to.
Right. It's
just $5 is what we're asking.
Yeah, that's awesome. People definitely need to go and check that out. And obviously Collective Darkness too. Check that out on Amazon. Go check that out. Phenomenal works in there so far. And the art piece was awesome. It was definitely the lettering on that. Was that a font that you guys found, or was that something that you had penciled specifically by an artist?
So we hired a cover artist to do the cover. So I believe she did that herself.
Oh, wow. Okay. So since you guys have
right?
I'm sorry. What did you say, Jonathan and AR? Sorry.
Oh yeah, Jonathan.
Oh, sorry. I just right.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I lose you?
It's just when you both talk, I can't hear.
I'm sorry.
Both.
Sorry, there's a little delay. Sometimes I think it's an opening, but then it's like, nah.
So since you guys have experience with like editing and like going over books and everything, what is something that you seek out? Well, two-parter. What is something that you seek out, and what is something that immediately turns you away when you're getting submissions or when you're even just book reviewing, since you guys do that as well?
Yeah.
Okay, Liz, you go first, and then I got a whole bunch.
You got a whole bunch. For me, it's well, there are, especially with short stories, there's there's a nice balance. A lot of people, when they submit, they don't realize that short stories have to be paced differently than a novel, and because of that, they tend to start the short story way too early, so you don't actually get into the action until middle of the story. And by doing that, the reader might be lost, or they might not get everything out, because then the ending becomes rushed, because you can only do 5,000 words, right? And so it's like, well, how am I supposed to get it all in? And it's just, you have to, usually short stories, you have to start at the inciting action, or at least that's what I like for our things, because we have the 5,000 limit. So that's a big one. And then, so usually, as long as the editor or the writer or the author is okay with my edits, I never try to take away their voice. I'm just, trying to fit it with like the grammatical theme, or like, just things like that. But I also look for writers who want to be, have their voice, but are happy to work with the editor, because it's, it's a process, it's a partnership. So yeah, so that's what I look for. And then book reviews, I look for, a really rounded story, because sometimes they'll be kind of rushed and stuff, so it's really nice. Like one of the last stories, like a full novel that I just finished, or two of them, I'll call them out because I love them so much. Liberty Key and Riley's Not At All Fake Exorcism Service.
Excellent. You forgot the word excellent.
It's a very long title. Riley's Excellent and Not At All Fake Exorcism Service, and Liberty Key. Those two stories, they were fantastic. They both had great pacing. They were rounded out. They had the, a strong start, strong middle, and strong end. And that's what I look for in a book review, to give them 5 stars. A 4-star for me is usually like, it's a good story, but there were certain things missing. But yeah, so 4 or 5s are great. But yeah, so just pacing is my big thing. Long answer to that, pacing.
So for me as a publisher and an editor, stories matter, obviously. Like, you got to have a good story. But like, I don't give a shit if your story is the best story ever written in the world. Like, I look at the author, and there's 2 things that I'm looking at when I'm looking at whether I want them to come aboard with us. Number 1 is, like Liz mentioned, that collaborative spirit. We want someone who has a good attitude, who wants to work with us, not against us, who isn't there to say, this is my story, my voice. Because ultimately, as a publisher, I'm thinking of the audience. That's who I'm trying to please. I want them to enjoy every story that we publish, and I want them to come back and keep returning. I mean, it's great, like, if you've got your baby, but like, if you want to have your baby, you can have your baby at home. But like, if you want to be in business with us, like, we're going to think about
Right. It's like a
providing the best experience.
marketable.
And I know that sounds harsh, or like we've been called censors or whatever by a few authors who don't like edit. I won't name any names. And then the other thing I look at is if our authors are looking at writing as a business and whether they're taking that business serious. We've had writers ghost us after getting published, and it's like, okay, great, you wrote a good story, but like, I always say this. What do I say this? Books don't sell themselves.
Yeah.
Authors sell books. We have to sell the books, and if you don't have an online presence, if you don't have Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or something, if you're not engaging with the writing community, like how are you going to help us sell your book? Like it's not magically going to sell itself. And so those are two things that I look at when I am looking at who we're going to bring into the fold.
Right, because
into the collective.
Well, because like with the anthologies, we want to help writers get to, because the anthologies, usually it's just a short story. So, you don't have that option. At least right now, we don't have the option to publish novels. And so if you want to publish a novel and you want to go to a publisher or you want to self-publish, you need to have these skills. And so what we offer are the skills to, market yourself, understand like the editing, why there's the collaboration. But yeah, and just like knowing your audience, because it's
well, also like I don't expect. I mean, we mostly work with amateurs or new authors or upcoming authors, and we don't expect them all to be experts at everything. But what I really like to see is that they're willing to try. Like a lot of our authors, they don't know how to do this stuff, and we're working with them, and they're creating Instagram accounts, and they're out there selling, and I think that's great. I love working with them. So that's something I really love to see in new authors is someone they don't need to have all the experience, but if they're willing to learn, then I love it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. You actually brought up two things that I want to continue on a little bit more. One, I'd love to go on in that spirit of what you were just talking about. Like, what are more things that you would, more tips that you would give out to like aspiring authors out there? And two, the writing community that you were just like talking about. How did how did that come along? Because you talked about your editing groups and all that. How did that whole process come to be as well?
Jonathan, do you want to answer the first and I'll answer the second one?
Sure. Okay, so just some writing tips. Like you got to really be open to editing. Yeah. Like we don't expect you to necessarily make every change that we suggest. I mean, we're a group of different voices, the two of us, and then we have some other editors that volunteer, and they're great. But, we don't all necessarily have the same eye to eye. But what we're really looking for is someone who's willing to listen, to make changes, and do the work. A lot of times it's like, okay, like Liz was saying, your pacing is too slow. We have this really good author, but he's, not that experienced yet. And he has this great story that's like, this would make a great novel, but we need it to be a short story. But he's willing to go back and work on the pacing, work with us. And I don't mind putting in the extra effort myself to help him because it's worth it to me to see him succeed too. And I think it's the attitude that makes it worth it. Authors that, in the past we had an author who Liz had approached about making some, significant changes. And that author was like, well, I'll just forget it then. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's your choice. But if you want to succeed in this industry, you got to be open to working with publishers. And, right. And I think that there's this sort of misnomer out there that like the author knows best and the publisher doesn't know, stick to your guns. And I don't think that's the right attitude. I think that's combative. And I don't think it's the best way to get at the ultimate product that's the best for the reader,
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Anyway. And kind of going off of what you said, Jonathan, too, where it's like, you don't have to agree with what the publisher says, but at least look at why the publisher or the editor is like highlighting a certain area. Maybe you don't have to take their suggestions, but maybe you could rework it and make it new. Like at least look at it with fresh eyes and see, well, is there actually a problem? Because sometimes
don't take it personally.
Yeah, and don't taking it and not taking it personally too. And then with the second question about editing me, how it came to be. So I have a lot of experience as a journalist and an editor. I, wrote blogs for a long time. And then with editing me, that came to be as, a focus for novels, getting into freelance with writing, doing copywriting, copy editing. And then also just, starting these writing groups where I have 2 writing groups right now. One is with League of Utah Writers. It's a fairly new one I just started. It's romance. So it's like different from what I would normally do. But, I saw a need. And so I filled it. So, and I'm probably gonna have like some horrific romance in there, just you wait, for my anthology. But then the other one is a meetup where it's like an all genre. And it's more like, while there are all different sorts of writers in there, there is a high interest in speculative fiction. And that one's a lot older. I think we've been going on for like 3 years. So fairly new-ish, like in the grand scheme of things, but it's been around for a while. But editing me just came to be because I just wanted a reason to edit and help authors go to market. So, with the anthologies, that's with Collective Tales Publishing, and a writer wants to get to the point of the anthology and they're not ready. I'm happy to work with them. I also, I help with marketing strategies. I help writers or authors who have published or want to publish, even like self-publishing, so I'm just working with them. It's more of like a one-on-one approach compared to Collective Tales Publishing, which is, that it's the whole anthology.
That is awesome.
Can I put a plug in?
Please.
So my mom, bless her heart, she's an artist, so she paints, and she's been painting crafts and selling them since before I was born. And she's really good, and she has all her customers and everything. And she's been wanting to make this book for, I don't know, some number of years, and she's kind of written it on no, I'm not kidding, a typewriter with her little paintings. And I'm just like, oh, Mom. And she asked me to help her make the book, and I was like, I cannot, because I don't work with family. Not that I tried to help my brother, but like, oops, that's that out loud. And so I was like, Liz, why don't you hire her? And she's like, okay, great. And so she's so excited because now her book is like going to be done like next week, and she already has an audience who loves her work. She just didn't know how to make a book, and she's not an editor. So Liz is here to help with that part, to take someone who has ideas and artwork that people will want and help them put it in together and publish it. So I think that service is really extraordinary.
So. Thank you. Yeah, it's been editing, formatting. We'll be getting into the print, getting into ISBN, all that stuff. So really working on a lot of stuff that maybe she didn't exactly know. So it's nice to help her, get her out there. And
yeah, that really is an awesome service. I mean, I've talked about it with I think 2 other authors that I've spoken to were kind of in the same boat as I was, that you can tell I'm a phenomenal writer, but
on the editing.
Yeah,
don't worry about it. Yeah.
Is that like I just kind of came up with the idea, and I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would ever write it, ever. I mean, ever. It was just something that I was just with my friends, and we would just kind of joke about it. And then when everybody was gone, I was still kind of thinking about it a little bit. And then like right before you went to sleep, it'd be like, oh, it'll be kind of cool if we put that part over here. And then just over years, it developed into like a story. So then when you delve into it, it's almost the scariest thing ever, because you have no one beside you. They can go like, hey man, what is it's not like passing a driver's test or like getting your first job that everybody else is doing. It's like, oh yeah, remember the first time you did your novel? No, I don't. Don't you like, when was the last time I read a novel? So like, it's very hard to get into. And on top of that, even social media, I was reluctant to it for up until 3-4 months ago. I was just like, oh no, I mean, Stephen King isn't like tweeting, right? It's just like that whole logic of like, oh, my favorite author wasn't doing it, why would I have to do it? But it's like, you just really have to, it's what you said, you really have to like take the advice given to you and not just to kind of like gloss it over and be like, oh, that you're above it, and really listen. I remember when I was talking to Jonathan through Instagram, and he was like sending me like a whole article of how like publishing short stories versus like the whole internet thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I really read it, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of things on here I did not know. And I generally would like I was like, wow, thanks. That was like a lot of like stuff that I didn't know, and just like simple things like that, just like interaction, the whole writing community. It's just phenomenal, which is was awesome that you're doing the whole editing me thing and everything like that. Yeah, phenomenal. Uh, kind of going a little bit. You said that you liked Edgar Allan Poe, and you said that you like horror, but you also want to talk about like your romance and sci-fi. So, broadening a little bit more, what some of your favorite works? Period, not just horror, but just period, novel wise.
Well, Name of the Wind, that series, it's a fantasy series, and it is definitely not horror. It's, it's more medieval fantasy, but the wording is so clever and so beautiful. If I could just, I just wish I could just, that's my goal for writing, is because he'll just like have these like poetic sayings, and I'm just like, oh, yes. Anything that has like a poetic saying, it could be, and that's why I think I like scary horror authors from the, like from the 1800s, is they tend to have this like grotesque yet poetically beautiful way of writing. Um, but like the Wind is has that same, but it's in a medieval, or yeah, it's like the fantasy. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to like talk to Patrick Rothfuss one day and just be like, hey, look, buddy, we need to have a writing sprint.
Anyway. I've never heard of that series before. What is
Really?
Yeah, can you go a little bit more about it actually?
Yeah, so I think it came out I don't know, maybe like 15 years ago or something. No, the third book is like 10 years in the making, I'm not sure. But it's set in this fantasy time where there is magic, but it's more of like yeah, I can't think of the word. The
archaic.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't think of the word. But yeah, as alchemy, and you're being taught it at a school.
Like a science.
Like a science. And so they are, our favorite character, he goes to the school. He's like I don't spoilers for anyone. But his family is like decimated, and he wants to find the killers. And by the way of finding the killers is, through going, like he gets the magic, the Name of the Wind. He learns these things so he can fight against these evildoers. So I hate spoilers, so I don't want to like say too much.
No,
it's a really great scene. And it's it's different parts kind of, where it's like quote in like a future time telling the his story, like, and you go into the back, so it's like it's in third person and first person, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, so he has his 2 books out, and there's supposed to be a third one. But everyone who's ever read it thinks that there is just not, it can't just be 3 books. Just like with the amount of content, it would probably need to be 4 or 5. But we'll see what happens. That's all up for debate. But
wow,
highly suggest it.
That's awesome. What age did you read that?
Very recent. Yeah, in the last maybe 4 years. I think I first read The Name of the Wind 4 years or something. And I read books, and I also listen to books. So I like doing, at separate times, but just like I like the different mediums for different reasons. So if I really like a book when I'm reading it, I'll probably end up listening to it, or vice versa, like, at a different time. Not at the same time. I have to clarify that because people have gotten confused. But yeah, so I'll listen to it, and reading it or listening to it. The Name of the Wind is phenomenal. The narrator of The Name of the Wind is an awesome narrator. So whichever way you like, I highly suggest it.
Oh, that's awesome. The only reason I asked is because I find that a lot of series that people say are their favorites, they usually read when they were like growing up. Like if you were to ask me, I would say probably the Greek from Rick Riordan and the whole Percy Jackson series easily, because I was like I grew up on that. I was a huge like history nerd when I was like a kid, so that was just my vibe. I was like, oh, Egypt, Jesus Christ, and Greek and mythology and all that thing. That was my whole tone. I was like, yep, that was in it. Yeah, and that kind of started the whole love of fantasy, and then delved into sci-fi and all that.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I read a lot of Goosebumps, and there was this Deadly Detention that I loved. I would read a million times, and I Secret Life of Bees. Those are my like ones that stick out. But I don't know. Name of the Wind is it's only recent. Didn't grow up with it, but it's my all time favorite.
Yeah, I think they even speaks like highly that it's so recent. That's awesome. Jonathan, what about you? What's something that really
Ooh, okay.
you draw inspiration from?
Okay, well, so my favorite book is possibly Dune. If you ever read that, fantastic, so great. What I like about it is it incorporates like almost it's like scriptural stuff in there that's really cool, and like there's like these fake references, and then I also like Frankenstein, one of my favorites, and then a novel that I read more recently that I really like is Chicano, because it's something I could relate to being Chicano myself. And then another classic I love is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. So these are all
I still need
different
to
genres.
read that one.
Yeah, you need to read that. And then when I was a kid, I loved Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh yes, Scary Stories.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, you know that one with the art. The art. Oh my god.
Yeah, the art as a kid.
So
it was. I almost wanted to just walk by it and just like, oh, I can't do that today. I want to sleep.
Yeah. It's so like wonky and not right. It's just like, what is wrong with this? This is unnerving.
Yeah, it's actually one of those things that when you get into writing yourself, you're like, yeah, that's why covers are so important. Because know, as a kid, that you just like beelined. Yeah, it really sticks with you. I have to say, Frankenstein is my Mount Rushmore. Mary Shelley, just that whole work is insane. Talk about inspiration. I draw inspiration from that all the time. Just like the whole how she drew the whole aspect from Paradise Lost, and had like the whole thing of like the monster questioning not only his mortality but mortality as a whole. I mean, just Jesus Christ, the whole intricacies of that book, and then obviously the horror, the whole idea, because at the time people coming up from their caskets was a commonality. The whole reason that we nail in coffins was the whole fear that people could come back up, because we didn't have like the medical science to really be able to tell if a person was 100% dead or maybe kind of sort of. So there was supposedly stories that people would just, wake up with a grandpa all muddy with a broken hand from like, clawing out of his own grave. And that's a lot of where like the stories come up like from monsters and shit like that, supposedly. And then she took that time frame of like horror and that like idea of like legend and made that into Frankenstein. And like, that's something to like really like something that I think really good horror like takes like a hint of. Like I think like now like Black Mirror will do we'll do like great jobs of like blending like how technology will start going like, hey, this can be really fucked up too though, Do you
oh my gosh, that show's hard.
I know, I love that show.
So relatable.
What is
except for some of them are horrifying. I can't.
What is your favorite episode?
I can't watch more than one episode at a time.
The favorite episode. My favorite episode probably would be I don't know. So the one, I can't even remember the names of them, but the one where the guy is, he's blocked, and so like there's that thing where once you're blocked, everyone like you become this red thing, or like a fuzzball, or like when the person was put in jail for like 100 years, but it had only been like 10 seconds or something.
White Bear.
Yeah. Those are or recording your memories. That's also a messed up one where it's like, you have an argument and it's like, no, let me show you. It's like,
that episode I saw right after, or I think right during, I was in like a bad relationship, and it was the exact thing of like when you're having like they're having that argument, and then he goes back and looks at that, like looks through the argument. My God, I was just there, because you do the same thing when you're in a relationship. You like think back, but you don't have the ability to have direct recordings of it, and like how, and the fact that you could like show it to a person. Oh my God, half the thing of being able to like avert a conversation, just being like, all right, you're right, I forgot, whatever, okay, whatever. But like, oh no, you didn't forget. What do you mean? Right there, motherfucker, what's up?
No way getting out of it.
I would do that.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't?
So most of those episodes I hate them because they feel like they're a personal attack on me. Yep. And I'm like, fuck you. Yeah, you make a good point about how terrible I am. But there's one episode that's actually kind of cute. I mean, they're almost all just like really depressing, but the one that's actually kind of cute is the dating app. You know the dating app?
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, I remember.
But like they're like trying to escape, and they go out with different people, and like they end up back together, and they like escape out of the wall, and that means, oh, you matched, and your little Tinder app thing. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah,
I did.
They're probably gonna have a one night stand.
Sad.
I mean, they're gonna get married. Forever.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you're actually right. That actually was a really nice episode, but because I was thinking the exact opposite, and the scariest one. I mean, when I talk to people about like horror in general, I'm like, no, this is a prime example. Is the video game one, and how like it goes into. You saw that one, how it's like the spoiler alert. It's like the whole horror ends up being that his mom.
His Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that was one of the. I actually couldn't finish that one. It was so because that actually real. Is. Yeah, exactly. And that hit me. I've never been such a baby when it comes to horror. And like usually like even a game, like games scare me. I sometimes scream when, scary stuff happens. But I can usually deal with it, but that Black Mirror episode, I was like petrified. Like I had to like turn it off. I couldn't, because that is my real fear, is to get Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it bothers me so much, because it's fake, but it bothered me. It was horrible. It is the epitome of horror.
It really is. The line where like because the whole thing is that like his mom is calling him throughout the entire episode. Yes. Yeah, at the end when his mom calls like hello and he realizes everything, it actually hurt me. Like I felt an arrow go through my heart. I was like, oh my god, it was like the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. Like, Jesus, what are we doing? When they stab the baby in the heart, oh, you feel it in your chest.
I know. Oh yes, as much as like as horrible it is to say, like I kind of. Is that why I like horror? Is those moments of the just like fear? I don't know. Like it's just because it sits with you. It's like that thing what I mentioned before, where we are talking about those episodes because they sat with us for so long. It will never be the same. And that's what stories are all about, I guess.
There's a quote that I like watch it randomly, most random tangent ever. There's a show called Vinyl, which is like about like the start of like punk rock and like how like the RNA company of I think like Interscope like dealt with like going from like like the peace and love type of rock band into like the like punk rock and like dealing with it. And the thing that the guy was saying, because the punk rock band that like they were highlighting was like, the shows like people were like, basically rioting against them. And like people were mad and like throwing shit at them. And the guy was like, how is it ever going to be marketable? And he goes like, you're not getting it. People want an emotion, whatever the fuck the emotion is. They just want it to be real. Know what I mean? So like that's what horror is. Like even though it's such a like I think that's why I didn't like it for so long, because it's like, why would you pay for that feeling when I could pay for comedy or action or anything cool like that? You know what I mean? But then when you start enjoying it for what it is, and it's actually a quote that the Japanese game maker said, that the cool thing about horror is that you experience that fear, but then you're still alive at the end. It's that you go through that high, but then it's like, okay, I'm still here.
It's like a dream. It's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Like, why? I mean, I hear this all the time because I talk to people about horror all the time. Like, why would I want to be scared? And I'm like, I don't know. But like, when I was a kid, I used to love watching like those drama movies that are really sad. It's like, why do people watch those? They're sad.
Great.
But it's like you want to feel sad sometimes, and then afterwards you go get and like your ice cream and you're fine. But like, so like it's nice to sometimes feel intense versions of those in a place where you're safe.
Yes.
Like you don't actually have to deal with the loss or being murdered or whatever,
Right.
So it's like going on a roller coaster almost.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like really sappy horror movies like 500 Days of Summer or Mr. Nobody. If you ever seen that one, that's a really low key one, but my God, that one gets at me every time.
I have not. I'm gonna look this up. Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, Mr.
500
Nobody.
Days of Summer is good.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know if I've seen parts, I think, of this. Okay.
well, a really good one that Cloud Atlas to me goes up there, but a lot of people dislike it for whatever reason. I mean, I guess it could be kind of like the format of it could be a little choppy, but as a love story, I loved how it was like the whole idea that love transcends like different timelines and keeps going on and on, because it's basically just three people throughout different timelines, you know, just all throughout, and how they find each other no matter what, almost kind of like the Black Mirror episode, but in real life, not an app.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is awesome. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to plug or anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
Submit, you know, feel free to submit to our Collective Humanity and the Darkness Between. Those are the two open submissions we have now. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And
well, I mean, Darkness is, I think, technically closed, but we have a little bit of space.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know.
Well, I've been inviting a few people that I'm like, oh, it would be good to have them aboard, just because I like to save a little space. But I think we're officially wrapping it up, and then the next one will be Visions, and so look for that. The theme will be sci-fi, but the theme is going to be Lost in Translation, I believe, right?
Ooh.
So
Lost
people
in
can
Translation.
start writing. I mean, if you have something now, send it, just a short story, and then we'll make it official soon.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, one thing I forgot to talk to you about. So you guys are like short story anthology. That's your whole thing. What is some of your favorite short stories?
Ooh.
Short stories is in published short stories?
Yeah, I have three in my head that I'm dying to talk to you guys about. I'm sure you've read them. They're crazy famous.
Number one.
Well, one of my favorites, I don't mean to be obsessed with H.P. Lovecraft, but one of my favorites is The Outsider by H.P. Lovecraft.
Definitely.
Not Stephen King. It's a different story. And the reason why I like it so much, it's one of H.P. Lovecraft's earlier stories. And it's I like it so much because it hit me at a moment when I was feeling, I don't know, certain sad feelings, I guess. And so it just made me feel so much. And like, even though there's not really hope at the end, there's like this conclusion that is satisfying, kind of. I don't know, satisfying for a horror story. And it's 5 pages long. So even if you're not really into classical horror, it's compared to some of the other ones that are pretty long, that one's an easy taste into that genre.
And a twist at the end, I don't want to give it away, but my God.
And then and you can say one if you want. But Rats in the Walls is another.
Well, I mean, I like H.P. Lovecraft too. There's some really good ones. The Eldritch horror is good. But my favorite, I'm trying to remember, I'd have to look it up, is there's a story where there's this guy and he's with his buddy or something, and they're going to investigate it. I think it's called The Tomb. Is that right? And he goes like investigate it, and he gets stuck in there or something. It's been years since I read it, but it was really cool. I remember really enjoying it.
The Pit and the Pendulum by Edgar Allan Poe. The what one? Oh, the cat.
I was going to say it was also the cat of Ulthar.
Oh, okay.
A really good one that I like is you know who has a couple good cat stories too is Edgar Allan Poe. What's the one with the cat that was accidentally buried into the thing? It was in the wall.
Is that the Black Cat? Is it called the Black Cat?
Maybe. I think it's called the Black Cat. Because he has a couple different cat ones, and I forget which ones.
I can't remember which.
Cat. Yeah, that one's really cool.
I do not like that Black Cat one. I'm just gonna say.
I haven't read that one.
I love it.
I like that one. I hate it.
Oh, my favorite. Okay, I just realized my favorite. My favorite is probably The Mask of the Red Death, especially in 2020.
Yeah, so especially
what is that about?
Very relevant.
It's about 2020. So there's a play going on, and all these rich people have a party, and they're just like, woo, having it up, and they're all wearing masks. Funny, right? And they're just like, screw it, we're just gonna like let the people die of the plague, and we're just gonna party. And spoiler alert, it doesn't go well for them. I won't tell you exactly
Yeah.
what happens, but you need to read it. It's real short. Fantastic.
Yeah.
The Mask of the
Very
Red Death. It's
relevant.
by Edgar Allan Poe.
Have you guys?
It's super relevant.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, it's just master. I think he was one of the first authors that we read in like high school and like really started like going into it. What is the one? I always fuck up the name. Heartbreaker's Tale or something like that. Heartthrobber. It's the one that the old man's
Heart.
Oh,
Yes,
the
the
Telltale
Telltale
Heart.
Heart.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
That one's
I
great.
love that. It was just such a delve into insanity because it was the first time I ever read like
I
a
love
false
that one too.
narrator. Because every time you
Yeah.
read as a kid, like your fact of reading up until that point was that whatever you're reading is they're not lying to you. Why would the narrator lie to you?
It's supposed to be trustworthy.
Yeah, you trust them. And then
Unless they're insane.
Yeah.
and then like you start going on, it's like, oh wait a minute, his perception on reality might not be something you can really trust. And like that was just God, it was so awesome. Edgar Allan Poe was so awesome at like twisting those little things like that. Cask of Amontillado. Man,
Yeah.
I always fuck up on the thing on the
That's
That
not
one
what
was
I mean.
messed up.
Yeah. God. He was
The Raven. When I was a kid, the Simpsons
Raven, of course.
did their version, and I was like, "This is amazing! I love it."
Yeah. The thing is, talk about like how just like being able to like transfer energy into like to creative juices. I mean, the trauma that dude went through in life. I mean, four or five of the people closest to him, basically 4 out of 5 of the people that he ever cared about in his life all died from tuberculosis, and then he died from tuberculosis. No, or did he die from the complications of that whole polling thing? Oh wait, no, his death is a mystery, isn't it?
I don't know.
I remember he like drank himself to death or something.
Man,
theories as to what caused Poe's death include suicide, murder, cholera, hypoglycemia, rabies, syphilis, influenza, and that Poe was a victim of cooping. So they just know they found him at 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's my favorite theory of cooping. I don't know if you guys ever like know that the stories that at the time very popular in like politics, like a form of gerrymandering was that let's say that they want to get this politician elected, instead of doing what they would do now and like poll to like different things and get support from corporations and shit, they would literally just send gangsters over to that side of the thing, drug up people and bring them to their district to make them vote and then dump them wherever the fuck. And supposedly Edgar Allan Poe was this actually happened to him, and he was lost. Like records say that he was at a train station, that people saw him at a train station at a certain day, and that he just was there again in like a stupor 5 days later, and then he died a couple days after that due to complications.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time that my teacher told me about it. He was the world's greatest mystery horror, left us with a mystery horror on his death. I mean, talking about going out like as a legend.
Seriously?
Wow, okay, that's crazy. I think I had heard once that like he like drunk himself to death, but that's way crazier.
Well, exactly, all a theory, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
By the time in 25 years, it's going to be that he did that plus fought a bat,
Yeah, who knows?
A real life Frankenstein came up and he killed them too, whatever. It's going to keep on it's going to keep on snowballing. Yeah. Well, have you guys ever read The Egg by Andy Weir? Oh, that is one I heavily recommend. It is a person dies and he speaks to God. And I won't go deeper into that. That is,
and it's
Andy Weir. He's the person that wrote the Martian.
The Martian, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, I like
the Martian and Artemis. Yeah, of course, phenomenal. Hard science. I mean, who can? I mean, just the amount of work he put into that. You got to give him. You got to take off your hat.
Seriously, that's another one I think.
Send it over to him.
Yeah, he has some really clever writing too. I really liked The Martian. That's
well, yeah. If you like clever writing, The Egg is definitely up there. And the worst part about it is his interpretation of it. Supposedly, people come up to it because that short story. It like especially around the time that I read it, it was just I grew up Catholic, and that's like you start like oh what is life, is God real? Start like all those questioning. And then that short story hit me, and that's what gave me the full thing to just go like, oh yeah, nah, fuck this, and like start going on like my own like vibe for like philosophically and what was going on. And supposedly when people go up to him and tell him that, he like it's like, no, I was like, oh, whatever. What do you mean? I wrote that like one drunken night. Who gives a fuck? I put it up. Like it's nothing. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing to him.
That's funny.
And then, are you guys fans of Isaac Asimov? Asimov, by any chance?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
iRobot, right?
I read
Yes.
that.
Well, have
Really
you read,
like that.
have you read the
That was
two
the
short stories by him, The Last Question and The Last Answer?
So I read the book, the iRobot book. I did not read the separate if there were some separate short stories.
Oh no, his I don't even know if he released it. I think it's another thing like that he just released it for fun. Like, oh yeah, whatever. You can actually find it on again, you just find it for free wherever. And that and pretty officially too. I don't think it's like stolen or anything like that. You can find it on isaacasimov.com or something like that. And those short stories is another one where it is basically there's a thing called a multivac, which is like this crazy computer, and basically it's just iterations of it actually dives into it a little bit with iRobot and also his Foundation series. It's kind of like a thing that that kind of goes throughout his books. But what the short story focuses on is like the evolution of that technology and how people take that to question like what God exists. Because basically the computer gets higher and higher and higher. And every time the question is like, all right, do you have enough information? Does God exist? And every time it's like, nah. But then the short story progress. The way it goes is insane. And then the last answer is a little more into that vein, but in just like a different way. I mean, I think that's one of my favorite things about authors is how much they can get right about the future, but how much they can just get a little bit wrong.
Right.
I assume you guys know about Blade Runner.
Right. With Blade Runner. I think we lost Jonathan for a second.
Yeah, his connection will come back. We're fine.
Yeah. So with Blade Runner, it's with the Dewey Andrews Dream of Electric Sheep, like are you the comparison with that, or you just mean like in general, like how they've been able to predict certain things with like compared to Blade Runner to the current times?
Well, with Blade Runner specifically, is you have all this Android technology and all these crazy concepts of they didn't go into the movie, but in androids, the reason it's called androids of electric sheep is that in the thing there are electric sheep, and the whole idea of electric animals are actually a huge thing, and the whole disparity between electric animals and a real animal is kind of the divinity of the rich. And then the whole owl aspect, that when you go to the I can't remember the name of the company,
right?
It's a big company. People are gonna roast me for that one too. But when you go on to that whole thing, that is kind of like the part of the crazy philosophy of it, whereas like you question it so much, like, is the owl electric or is it not? And then that's the whole thing of like, what is real, what is fake.
Right.
But he was able to get to that point so deeply back in like the 70s or 60s when he wrote that. But when you read the thing, everything that he has is paper. He was still, with all that insight of technology and flying cars and colonies on the moon and all these things, everything that they went through was still on paper, and they still talked on phones and things like that. So for as much as they were able to go for it, they were still limited by, they could never perceive an interface that would just stay stagnant, but then the text would move. You know what I mean? And then there are authors that were able to predict it in certain ways, but then they would get it completely wrong and how it would go. And then more so, you can't even predict how technology goes.
Right.
There's no way Steve Jobs knew Twitter was going to happen or Instagram, right? He came up with the iPhone. There was no way he was going to think of all the things that were going to come with it.
Yeah, I really like that. That's one of my favorite things with like writing in general. Like you can, it can be in a book, it can be in a movie, or a game. But with that, the writer, like you're saying, has this. You'll get those people where they just hit so many things that are so eerily accurate to the current times. You're like, how did you know? It's like Back to the Future, where it's just like all these weird things. You're like, what the crap? Why is almost all of this real?
Not the flying cars.
The tableted food and everything.
Yeah. It's like it's like the hoverboards, that's a real thing. I mean, not the same extent, but it's like that. Huh?
Yeah.
What did you say, Jonathan?
I said, I don't know. I feel like they got a lot. I think most sci-fi things get a lot wrong because the one thing that they usually fail to get right is cell phones. How we're going to have everything in our lives on this little teeny device, and it's going to be like where our faces the whole time. Well, that's the one thing that nobody predicted when I was a kid in the 80s.
Fact. 100%. But what is interesting is is it still going?
I think he
Oh, there's a little bit of delay in the video, I think. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. No, it's just a connection. We'll sharpen up in a second.
My internet went out, and so I switched to my phone. Probably slower.
No, it's fine. I hope my internet's fine too. I think it's starting to rain. What were we just talking about? I'm sorry.
About accuracy in
in sci-fi.
In the sci-fi, yeah.
But specifically, we were talking about Back to the Future. All right, so the tableted food. Yeah, it's just like that.
I can see it happening.
My thing is in engineering. Like that's what I do. That's like my day job. I went to school for engineering. I 100%. I'm in that camp. I really believe that food is going to go into that way. When we get into, because we're already there with 3D printing, and what 3D printing is simply taking like base atoms of plastic and just like putting it up, and then we're getting to the point of doing that with alloys and metals and things like that. Who's to say we can't start doing that and start putting atoms of bread on top of atoms of meat and then atoms of lettuce, some mayo. Now you print out a burger. Why not?
Exactly.
Some fries, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the main obstacle with most of these technologies is having the energy, like an unlimited. Once we get a breakthrough where we have like unlimited atomic power that's safe, then a lot of this stuff will be possible because like with chemical engineering, like you can really turn any atom into any other atom, right? Like you can turn iron into gold. It just takes a lot of energy, right? And if you have unlimited energy, then you can pretty much do what Star Trek does, right? Like,
God, that is awesome.
So
that's what alchemy is. Being able to turn anything into gold.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the whole thing of the alchemist stone, philosopher's stone, whatever you want to call it.
So I used to be married to this chemical engineer, so we would have these conversations, and she'd explain this stuff to me. And she said, "Yeah, you can turn anything into gold, but it wouldn't be worth it. It would not be cost effective because you can change elements to other elements. It just takes a lot of huge machinery and whatever, like it takes a lot of energy." So I was like, "Oh, cool! I did not know that."
That's interesting.
Because everything started out as like hydrogen, right? And then that turned into everything else that we have now.
Yeah, well, and the whole like osmos of like when the universe started going from the Big Bang and everything. But it wasn't the same hydrogen we have now. But then again, what do we know? You know what I mean? We just fucking taking dabs. And on top of that, what do I know? There's people. But one thing that I do really like is in the vein that you were talking about. Do you guys know about Minority Report? I think that's also by Isaac Asimov, but it's also a movie.
No, that was by Dick. That's by Dick.
What was that?
My report is by Philip K. Dick.
Phil, oh yeah, dude, I'm telling you, I'm gonna get eaten alive for this episode. Okay, and
a lot of his short stories were turned into really good movies.
Yeah, no, oh my god. I mean, I'm just horrible with names, but like I have like a whole bunch of collection. I have like a whole bunch of like anthologies of his too. Powerhouse of people, all Asimov, Adam Scott. No, I think I can't be right.
We were talking about Asimov early, and I wanted to say something before I got turned off. But have you ever read Childhood's End?
No, please tell me about it. I'm a huge buff.
Okay, I want to double check to make sure I don't get the Childhood's End. Childhood's End. Asimov, I think. No, that's by Arthur C. Clarke. Oh, I got it wrong. Dang it. No, that's okay. Childhood's End is a really good book by Arthur C. Clarke, and you should check it out. The premise is basically like the Overlord, what they're called. and
children.
Childhood's
Childhood's
End.
Child.
Yeah. So we're the children in this, humans. And so
Hmm.
these aliens come, they're the overlords, and they basically kind of take over, but they're peaceful and they're just way above us intellectually and everything.
Yeah.
And they're just like, here, no more war. You don't need that anymore. You're just gonna have a world of plenty now, and just kind of do what we say, and you'll be fine. And they're gonna help bring us into the next stage of our development, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And Arthur C. Clarke is also the same guy who did 2001: A Space Odyssey. So
Mhm.
he's all about humans evolving into some sort of higher intellectual life
Yeah.
force. Anyway, it's really good. I won't spoil the ending, but basically, some humans are like, "Well, this sucks. I don't like this anymore. It's boring."
Yeah.
Man, let me tell. I believe it's by the same author, and I think I'm looking at the anthology that it's in right now. He has a short story in it. It's relatively long. Well, no. Actually, I don't think it is. It's about like 10. Well, for the anthology, it's relatively long. Like, a lot of them are relatively like short.
Right.
And the premise, it was just, my God, I just couldn't stop reading it. It was about there's an alien, completely alien. There's no bipedal humanoids in the group. They all like tentacles and gaseous like beings and all these things. And they are kind of like, almost like a Star Trek Foundation, that they're a scientific committee that go about and they, conduct research about the galaxy and the universe, whatnot. And Earth is at its final stages. Our sun is about to supernova, and they're going to go. They're doing a humanity outreach. Basically, they're going to go see if any humans are left on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, the short story is, without spoiling like the ending, is just them going on the Earth and witnessing our ruins and kind of piecing together what happened and like what our society was, and just his descriptions of like simple things. And then like when you reread it, be like, oh, he's talking about a radio station. You know what I mean? Like a huge dish with like, a thing pointing out, because like he's reading it from an alien that has no point of view of what that ever would do, or why would you need a huge thing like radio? They probably lived in an atmosphere that doesn't support that type of frequency generation or whatever. Maybe they just use a different type of phase of light, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And that was, I mean, just the way you can just go, the way short stories can just bend. And I think that's why I love short stories. And that's why I really want to talk to you guys about the thing. I feel like it's almost like a dead medium, especially with what people are doing with like serializations nowadays, and like the whole KDP thing of like of just like going with like 20,000. I read one book that I read of one author on Wattpad that his one fiction has close to 1 million words. 1 million.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Too much.
Yeah, and like I'm all for long prose, and like I think that type of stuff is awesome, but like 1 million. I'm a man of brevity. My favorite sci-fi ever in life, what I always think to, like, when I go to pen and paper, well, not anymore, when I put fingertips on keyboard, is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's my all to, I mean, in 200 pages, this man takes you around the galaxy and back. You're laughing the entire time through, and you're critically thinking about humans the entire time. It is one of my favorite works ever.
Yep.
I almost want to get it sewn on a pillow or something. Like there's a line that he has in the beginning, and he is talking about humans, how we like almost worship these green papers that have faces on it. But it's almost ironic, but because we base our entire happiness on these green paper with faces on it, but the faces don't smile. And like I remember, it was one of those things that it was so, I had like that moment of like, oh, I had to put the book down and really think, oh, bastard, he got me. And you just had to really just sit back and think, oh man. You guys ever had a moment like that when you read and like something takes you so far back, and it's not that you just like it just for literary sense, not just because like it hits like a good rhythm in your head, the way that it rounds off, but that it truly makes you think inward and just like, oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe you're right on that one.
Yeah, I would think Gulliver's Travels comes to mind.
Okay.
Oh yes, I just finished that one.
Why would you say that?
Or Yahoo's?
Oh, the Yahoos, yeah, definitely the Yahoos is a moment for me.
Yahoos.
So I don't know if you haven't read it. There's this. He goes to these different lands, and it's kind of silly. But there's one where the horses are all smart, and the humans are Yahoos, and they're all dumb. The Hoonhims are the horses, and they're like, the Hoonhims. I don't know how to say it.
I listened to it on Audible, so like the narrator was always like, who hims? Like it's like
that's funny. Yeah, and it's like looking at it, and the Gulliver is trying to talk to the Hoonhims about the Yahoos, the humans, and they're all naked and they just run around, like Planet of the Apes or something, and they're like, well, you can't. They're uncivilized, they fight and they do their dumb things and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, you're talking about all humans, and that's really annoying to me, and I don't like it.
Oh man, that's awesome.
They're like talking about me.
There was one time that I made these like I don't know why they just made me think of it. I made these like race of like I wanted to make a race of people that were just like incredibly stupid, but I wanted to make it that like they had like almost like a rich like lore. They weren't just like dumb out of like no reason. So what it was is that they lived on like a planet that they had like this resource that I called mana. I called it mana just because like everyone wants mana, right? That's like a thing that like is always like tied to like magical properties and things like that. And this mana was just a crazy resource. It was like one of those things that like the moment they discovered it, people clamored for it, and then they weaponized it, and then everyone killed each other. Immediate, decimated the entire planet. Nuclear winter reset. And then in that reset, when like the whole planet comes like growing back and getting back into the jungle and whatnot, the planet starts to develop almost like a thick mist of nitrous dioxide in the air. So that when like the life form starts like going back and like it starts going from like, the gorillas again, the gorillas start inhaling constant things of nitrous dioxide, so they're constantly high basically. So like it stunts their growth forever, so that when people come and like talk to them, they're just like basically like high gorillas. But then they realize that like they want help, so they try to, so like a small sect of them like realize that if you go higher up in the mountains, the air is like a little more manageable and things like that. So they find radio stations and like start like communicating. And when they do, they get sent a dictionary. But then because of the humans, like the real humans are so stupid, instead of sending them a dictionary, someone sends them addiction on dairy. So when the humans arrive, they just think that humans only fuck with ice cream. So all they say is like, "Hey, human, ice cream right here. What's up? That's what we got for you." And nobody can talk. They just know the different things of like ice cream, and just like they think that's the only way they communicate, through ice cream.
Well, you should write it.
Oh no, it's in volume 2, but I got that from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because he has so little things like that, like the frog on the other planet that like it that its ribbit means like, oh, you're gonna die or something like that, and then like his friend tells him like, oh no, it just sounds like that, but it's like, you're gonna die, and it's like, dude, I think that's pretty kind of foretelling. No, it's like, nah, dude, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's a coincidence.
Yeah, no worries.
But Elizabeth, do you have going back to what we were just talking about, do you have any like moments in like writing in reading that like really like took you back, and then just like made you put the book down for a second and think, oh man, what did we just read here?
Yeah. So I feel like I get that quite a bit, just because I can devour a lot of things reading wise, but one of my favorites is the short story. It's a post-apocalyptic science fiction. It's the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
What?
Yeah, it's like messed up.
God, that sounds so awesome.
Yeah, it's
Wait, what is it called again?
I have no mouth and I must scream. So I think it's only like 12 pages. Maybe it's a little longer. I can't remember exactly. It's been a little bit since I've read it. But it's just a short story. And these humans are like trapped in this alternate reality universe type thing. And then there's like this, computer that is like messing with them. And it's
torturing them.
Yeah, torturing them. Yeah. And so I won't spoil it, but at the end, it just shakes you, like if any part of it hadn't like messed you up, like get to the end and then you're just going to be like, wow, what is my life? I feel dirty. I don't know. So that was one of my favorites, like post-apocalyptic ones.
I'm gonna read that right now. Like right
Yeah.
now. Like tonight.
Good.
That's awesome.
Message me and tell me what you think.
Oh, definitely. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. I love a good title like that that really gets you like up. It's actually one thing that going back to Hitchhiker's Guide, that I love that the Hitchhiker's Guide was also a book within the book, and how he talked about that the authors that made the Hitchhiker's Guide thought it was marketable to put a no caution in in front of it to make sure like to confirm people that like whatever they're gonna read that they were gonna be fine in order to like
don't worry.
Yeah, in order to sue them. Oh my God.
Don't worry.
Genius.
Yep.
Well,
thank you. Yeah.
Childhood's End. I have no mouth and want to scream. Jesus Christ. Talk about good.
You got some reading tonight.
Yeah. Do you guys ever see Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix? It's like an anthology animation short story.
Yes, so good.
You have seen it?
Yes.
Have you seen the one? Because it made me immediately think about what you were just. It made me immediately think of the short story you were just talking about. The one with the robot, the guy lands.
The pool cleaner?
Yes.
The pool cleaner?
Yes. God, that's a good one.
Okay. I have not seen this, but I will watch.
Because I was actually thinking about that when we were talking about I Must Speak, because it's like
yeah, me too.
The robot that comes alive and has a tortured existence, kind of.
Okay, so you guys think I should?
That's a good show.
I should watch that.
Heavily recommend it. Oh, and how can I forget? On the same vein, Haunting of Silent Hill has to be some of the best horror writing and like I've ever seen in my entire life. If you guys haven't seen it, and again, I'm not that great of a thing. I would say my experience on horror is like a year. But
so,
is that a movie based off the video game?
No, it is a series based off on the book, on the Haunting of Silent Hill. One of the classics. I think it was written in the 40s.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, is that the Shirley Jackson series book?
No,
well, that's Hill House.
It goes to the Silent Hills.
It is. It is called Hill House.
Is it Hill House? Oh, okay. Because okay, yeah, okay. Haunting Hill House. No, that's the.
I've been wanting to read that one for
you. Yeah, I don't know.
Behind Hill House, I believe, is by Shirley Jackson.
Right?
Haunting of Hill House. Shirley Jackson. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, that one's supposed to be really good. I have never read it. It's been on my list. You know, we should do a book club. The three of us should read it.
Okay, I'm putting it on my. I'm putting it on my wish list. Just wait.
Yeah, Shirley Jackson. Yeah, I need to read those too.
It's currently not available for purchase.
Because
Shirley Jackson is the author of The Lottery, right? That's a really good story. Have you read that?
No, I haven't. What is that about?
So they made us read it in school, but if I remember, because it's been a long time, they have a lottery in this village, and like the person that wins dies. Spoiler alert.
Huh.
I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but it's a short story. I'm not sure what the point of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what's awesome about like any good like book. It's like Pulp Fiction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of Pulp Fiction? It's more just like the entertainment value and just like you get like you're a part of the ride.
That's a good point. Yeah. I guess I grew up thinking there should be a moral in every story, right? Especially horror. I feel like horror always has like a moral, right?
Well, we grew up on Disney, you know. We're Disney kids, so like everything has a clear cut. That's a bad guy. This is a good guy. You cheer for this guy. Fuck that guy. Mm-hmm. This is the end. This is how it goes. But
yeah, I grew up with Twilight Zone and Tales from the Crypt, and you know the bad guy always loses in those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always a twist where the bad guy gets punished.
Muppets.
Usually eaten or something.
Have you ever? Yeah, I think that's like when it's awesome when again, not to ruin the spoiler, but The Outsider. That's why I think The Outsider is awesome.
Yeah.
But
I'm so glad that you've read that. I feel like a lot of people. It's a lesser known one, so it's such an amazing.
Oh no. I'm quite obsessive. When I get into a thing, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, no. Yeah. How I can't believe I missed this, and I really backlog. I think I knocked out like the entire Halloween series and like just like all the classics in like a good.
How many are like a dozen?
Oh, dude, there's Halloween 3, and then there's like the weird one that like I'm stupid, so I read it like Halloween H2O, but it was H20 because it was like the celebration. So I'm a dumbass thinking like, oh, Halloween H2O, this must be like the water one, you know?
I don't know why that's a weird title. What was the Halloween? Was it number 2 where it was like the TV and like when I was a kid, that one scared the crap out of me. Like the TV had like you know what I'm talking about? It had like an image on the TV, and it made you like lose your like brains melted or something. Like if you're wearing a pumpkin, I don't remember the details. I just remember like that happening. It was like a broadcast.
Yeah, yeah, it was a broadcast, and I'll tell you the main thing that really like fucked with me and the whole thing is that I saw as an adult, and all the things that made me that I would like watch the trailer of and make me shit my pants when I was a kid. When I would watch it as an adult, made me do the exact opposite. I was like looking at it like, dude, you are just I can't even look at you.
I need to rewatch it because as a kid, I thought it was so scary.
You know what's a great example of that? Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh,
you couldn't even talk to me about it as a kid. I'd be like, no, fuck that. Just like I remember I would watch the trailer and just like that little thing was like based on a true story. I was like, nah, fuck this. I'd have to change. I'd have to turn off I'd have to go outside and just like think about life. I was like, that was too scary for me. And then you rewatch it. You watch it as an adult.
Oh,
comical.
Yeah. I don't know. You got to rewatch just the scene where she's running to get in the truck, and you're like, "Get in the truck! Yeah, get in the truck! Get in the truck!" And then he's like, and then gets her. No, it's so tense.
The beginning scene is tense. Like when it shows the real footage of like the cops like going to the compound, and you just like see him coming up with a chainsaw, and it's at the cut of his face, and you're like, okay, no. That's when you have your dog in your lap, and you're just like, it's not real.
It's not real.
Not real.
I am so scared. In haunted houses, the scary thing to me is the chainsaw part. Or in Resident Evil 3, there's a part with these guys with chainsaws. I'm like, no, don't, please. Where's my rocket launcher?
Resident Evil 4 too. You mean? Or
Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's the one that he has in the cover. Yeah, that's awesome.
And he's so hard. Well, he's not so hard to kill so long as you have a sniper rifle. So.
Oh man, you guys were really into those games.
There's a part when you come out of this house and there's like 2 of them just waiting for you with chainsaws.
Oh, I used to be so afraid of that, but after 100 times or so of playing that, I learned that you have to have the sniper rifle. You shoot them like a few times and they die because they can't withstand the sniper.
But what you do is play it the second time with unlimited rockets and you rocket launcher them immediately.
No, that's not as fun.
I have to get rid of it.
You guys played we talked about BioShock. BioShock has to be my favorite.
I haven't played that one. I own it. I just haven't got around to it.
It's so amazing.
It is
BioShock 1 and 2.
I need to play it. I own it. I bought it. It's like I have a ton of games I've never gotten around to playing.
I'm like, what is you have to play it.
They truly are. I mean, the whole thing is that like the people are just like, I don't even know what you can't even say deranged. It's like I don't even demented. Right. It's like you crawl around a corner, and the game is what's so awesome is the game is old, but like you'll crawl, but it really feels like the game is like you're in a world. It's not like everything is tailored across you. It's not when you go around a corner, enemies just start attacking you. You really like just appear in scenes. Like there's a lot of times that you'll be walking, and your flashlight only sees so much, and then like you'll end the end of a corner and then there's people there and they're eating on like somebody, and then the moment you flash to them they look at you and then they start attacking you. It is so fear inducing. Especially when you play with the environment, headphones on and you're playing at night.
Oh yeah, it's very intense.
Oh god, it's crazy how the mind plays tricks on you. I mean that's the whole thing of like why ghost stories were more prevalent back in the day. Because like your mind could just like really play tricks on you. It was actually insane. It happened to me last night. I was like trying to go to sleep, and for whatever reason, I couldn't. Maybe I was just too excited for this podcast, right? Collective Darkness, get it on Amazon, motherfuckers. And I remember I just took off my glasses and I looked at the darkness, and for whatever reason, the darkness started playing games with me. And when you just start like having those things, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, that's definitely a ghost I'm looking at, and all those things. But then like the adult mind like snaps back and you're like, no, it's not, dumbass. Pick up your phone, flash a light at it right now. What are you talking about?
That actually, okay, can I plug one thing real quick? That reminds me a lot of
That did not sound
that
right, but you know
reminds me
what I
of
mean.
this is what I'm gonna say, right? That reminds me so much of Liz's story, Into the Dark. It's about this
Oh.
guy, like a murder guy, and he's like staying at this guy's house, and it's the darkness is like a character almost, like kind of almost talking to him, and it's just like
Yeah.
he's like trying to keep his light on, but it keeps like flickering, and
Yeah.
I won't spoil it, but it's pretty scary stuff. But that taps in, like that story taps into that feeling a lot, I think.
Right. It's
Man,
that,
that's
Into the
awesome.
Dark. That's the last story in the book.
yeah.
Well-
So beware.
Well, yeah. So
Yeah.
major selling point, right? That's why you need to buy the book, motherfuckers. Don't just get the sample. All right.
Yeah.
You need to click on the buy. Get that
Yes.
last book. Well, get the last story in the book. I'm sorry. Well, we talked a little bit about how you kind of curate the books, but how do you yourself get the inspiration to go about writing? How does that go? Like, what are the things that you kind of like draw inspiration? I've had this talk like it actually it's almost kind of divisive. How do you feel about bringing in to life people in your real life, like in your books? Do you do that? Do you like? Are there characters in your book that are yourself? Like, for example, people always can tell who Stephen King is in the book. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
always a writer in the book, and he always has some type of problem with either drinking or something, or he can't write the ending of a book for whatever reason. It's always something tied directly to Stephen King, and it's a character.
Yeah, that character is always there.
always there, and it actually happens in film too. Christopher Nolan does it, and I actually I wasn't smart enough. I had to read an essay from another guy that was way smarter than me about film, and he kind of pointed it out that Christopher Nolan also has a person that is more like that logical, almost directorial mind in the book. Like in Inception, it was Leonardo DiCaprio. Like he was like kind of like the directorial mind, and then in Memento, it was Guy Pearce was the main character again. And just like in a whole bunch of different works, it's always like that whole thing of like that he immediately makes almost like an avatar of himself right in the book. How do you guys feel about that? Is that, do you feel like it's almost like a cop out? Like, do you feel like your character should be 100% unique, 100% your own thing, or what?
See, that's the thing that I think writers get mistaken in this is like they think, you know, sometimes writers think, oh, I can't read in my genre because it will, you know, it'll mess up my writing, it'll skew what my writing is. But the thing is you should be reading in your genre. You should be okay with the fact that you're taking from inspiration all around you, because like it or not, you are, even if you don't think you are. Like even if like a lot of my characters aren't really set as a person, but you know, they are definitely mixes of people. They are definitely inspired by many different people. Sometimes it's like different parts of my own personality, you know? And so I totally think that is not a cop out. That is something that writers need to do that, and they need to be okay with doing it, because it's like in the same marketing thing, like readers like that thing. They like to be able to catch that and understand that. If it's too different, if it's too different, you'll probably never be able to finish your story because everything's been done already. So that's it. Just be okay with that. And as long as you're okay with that, just write and have fun. Don't worry about it being similar to something. Because if it's similar to something, you know, when you get to a publisher, a lot of publishers and agents ask for, like, what are your comps? What are your comparables? What stories are like your story? Okay, well, you have to have stories that are already like yours. And so, yeah, it's like I'm going to shorten my rant, but
elongate
totally,
it, if anything. Keep going, please.
No, but it's totally okay to bring in ideas from other people. That is the beauty in writing. Yeah. It's and that's the nice thing about the writing community, is that you're sharing, you're helping, you're creating ideas with each other. There's a partnership with, you know, even writers together. Like that's why I like creating writing groups, because, you know, the writers, they feed off each other, because it's not supposed to be this competition. You know, we should be helping each other. And if more writers were willing to help each other, I think it would be, a better place for the writing community. And so hopefully we can change minds. We'll see.
No, definitely. I so agree with that. I was talking, last off I was talking to was Steve Argan's Murder Fantasy. Great book. Israfel's Rising, if you want like a cool murder thriller. Really good. He was his father was a cop all his life, and he really and he did corrections himself, so he really got into like the mind of like a kind of like a murder, and you can really tell in the writing, it's unreal. But one thing that we were talking about is that like people have this like perception that like success is kind of an analogy of like yawning. Like yawning is like a thing that naturally happens with like through like a thing of like your lungs. But like the psychological thing of like why a yawn transmits is because your brain, when it sees a person yawning, assumes that that person is taking up all the air. So in your reptilian brain goes like, oh, that motherfucker's taking. Open up your mouth right now, motherfucker. You take the air. You take the air before it can take all the air. Fuck all that. We gotta survive out here. So, right. So I think people have the idea with success, and that like if they see a person opening up their mouth and getting success, you have to do all you can to take away from them. But like that's not how it is. There's not a finite amount of air. You can read Collective Darkness, pick it up right now, motherfuckers, and then you can go and pick up whatever it is. You can pick up your Stephen King, you can pick up whatever. You can pick up an indie. You can pick up a professional author that's been published and on New York Times letter list. He has a bed there basically. He's always on that, or she. So it's just it's kind of like crazy how that whole thing, and especially like just like that perception that because like everything grows. Part of the reason I love with this podcast is talking with other authors and getting just getting a better understanding of this whole thing. I mean, it's not easy just going down and knocking down 75,000 words. That's not and have the tenacity of going and sit down and and edits is the hardest part. I mean, like I every time I talk to a friend of mine and he's like, dude, what do you mean? How are you editing? I'm like, how am I not editing? If I edit, like when I'm writing, when I go to chapter 1, by the time I get to chapter 15, I could go back and rewrite chapters 1 through 14, basically. You know what I mean? Because by 15, you kind of like find like a nice groove that you like. And then you go back to chapter 1 and you realize that like it's not as consistent as it was in chapter 15. So you have like that want to like go back and just re-edit it. And then when you get to the end, you keep on just going through like phases and revisions, and it's just like a whole like process. And without having like a really cool community of people that are like like pushing you on your back and having like being the wind, it can be it can feel like there's a hurricane at your face.
Right, exactly.
Well, I have a couple thoughts too.
No, please.
Like, okay, so you were saying like about putting yourself into it. I think that's good. There's this thing they always say, write what you know, right? But it's almost cliche at this point that writers are always writing about writers, and it's like, okay, we get it. You are a writer. You write about a writer because that's what you know. But like to me, I'm like, that's almost like passe, right? So, if all you know is writing, then you need to do some fucking research, go read a book about someone who does something else, so you can write about a tailor, or you can write about a computer programmer, or you can write about a whatever, like you shouldn't make it up, but you should do maybe some research or something else. And that goes along with my other point, which is where I get my inspiration is from other writers, but like I'm talking about like classics mainly. Like I'll read a classic book or a poem. Liz will post a poem on YouTube, or like a YouTube poem, like on her wall, on her editing me Facebook group writers page plug, and I'll watch it, and then I'll be like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take this poem and I'm gonna like rewrite it in a totally different way and like own it, or like I'll have my sci-fi book that I'm written, but it needs like a lot of work. It's called Illusions of Grandeur, and it's just chock full of allusions to other better I guess works, right? And so awesome. I do a lot of inspiration from scriptures, and I'm not really religious anymore, but like I still appreciate a lot of the language. It's classic stories, poetry, mythology, even some newer things. And I like to quote those people or like allude to them in different ways, and I get a lot of inspiration just from reading. So like if I sit down and I start reading like the Count of Monte Cristo, I might have an idea, and then I'll start writing that. It'll give me an idea.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So writers gotta write, but they also gotta read. I think that's my biggest thing that I say.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually love that whole train of thought. My first book, Allegory of the End, is an allusion to Allegory of the Cave by Socrates, and like the whole
okay,
because like I like that whole idea that it was like the whole thing is obviously the allegory of questioning what reality is, right? Because they were looking at the shadows of what of things were, but it wasn't looking. It was they were looking at a simulacrum of what reality was, not what reality actually was, and they were, you know, the whole interpretation of what it is. So then for my book, I was kind of like, you know, what is like the, I don't know, the allegory of relationships, I guess, and kind of like how you interpret things at the end as opposed to the beginning, and how you view things differently. Like, you know, when you, like, if you were to ask your opinions on, you know, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas at 8, and then again when you're 21, and then again when you're 40, it would probably be different. And I just got obsessed with that whole idea. And that was it. And I just simply kind of like bended that into the whole thing. So I love that idea of illusions of grandeur and like the whole call back to other authors. Yeah, that's awesome. I really like that a lot. Well, I have your I definitely also wanted to show off your guys' website real quick.
Yeah.
So I'm sharing. This is the Editing Me website.
Yes.
Amazon #1 bestseller, motherfuckers.
That's right.
Yep.
It was the we were the #1 for new horror anthologies.
Hell yeah. And I also have I actually did, I don't know why I didn't mention it. I actually pulled up Little Darkness before the podcast even started. Shame on me. But so Collective Darkness right here. Here's the Amazon page. Get it, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I actually have it written down, the other authors that are in here. Let me get them out there. So the other authors in Collective Darkness are Edward Suggs, author of of Feast, absolutely powerhouse of a fucking short story, Jesus Christ. K.R. Patterson, Becca Rose, Jen Elwyn, that is an awesome name. All the names in here seem like they should been famous, like they all seem like famous already. No?
They should have been in, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Samuel Smith, and then Brandon Prowse. I hope I didn't butcher any of those names.
I believe you had them. You said them all correctly.
Yeah, those were the authors in Collective Darkness.
And as and Austin Slade Perry. I'm not sure if you had said that yet.
I don't think we got Chris Jorgensen or B. Todd Orgel.
Yeah, B. Todd Orgel, Chris Jorgensen, and
did you say Becca Rose?
And Becca Rose. He said
I did. Yeah,
okay.
Becca Rose. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. Some of them aren't on Instagram, and also on Amazon and Ingram Spark. Sometimes it's weird when it's names. So don't worry.
All right, cool. Well, Collective Darkness, and so the cover. How did you get into the cover? That's a really cool cover, because we were almost talking about Stories to Tell in the Dark. That whole like black. It's almost gives me like those vibes, and I do just love the contrast of the red and the black. I mean, my God, that's actually a beautiful cover.
Yeah.
I love it.
So how did you go about it? Was it just something that you gave your graphic artist and was just like, all right, go ahead and play, and then you kind of played around with different ideas, or was it that you had something in mind and you kind of executed it?
It was more just like, hey, I have some ideas. I found some cool covers that I liked, and from there we started really broad, and then we whittled it down, and slowly we came to this. So I'm really pleased with how it worked. But yeah, it was mostly just, her inspiration, and me just kind of going, let's see what you can do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I love working with artists, and I think that's the best way to like really get like a thing and like get them excited about the project too, is to let them, no one wants to be micromanaged, that's in anything in life.
Exactly.
Man, that's awesome. Well, going a little bit more about going back a little bit more, I should say, to the whole thing about how do I stop sharing? To the whole inspiration of writing. So we talked about the whole character development, about the whole like, should you pull it from your own aspects and like you're not. How about the actual flow of environment, and then like your for example, a lot of people that I've been able to talk to through this actually pulled a lot of their inspiration from their own cultures. One guy was his family is from Africa, so he developed this whole fantasy based myth about like based around Africa called Ocean's Odyssey. Awesome kind of like concept, but based fully on like on like stories that he heard growing up from his like grandfathers and like people that he was close to. Yeah. And then another person that was talking about Seymour Sainali. He did Of Blood and Steel, medieval fantasy, real gritty. And he was talking about like the whole that he is from like the whole like Caucasus like part of the world, Russia, that whole area, and he developed his whole thing about that whole culture growing up, about things that he heard from his grandma and people from that side of the world, and basically. So is there anything that you draw from that, or where do you draw your inspiration from? I mean, outside of like, you know, the readings and everything that we had already kind of discussed.
Yeah, just different personal experiences. You know, if something, you know, was really bothering me, I don't always write in a journal or a diary or anything. So but you know, I still like have emotion. I still need to bring it out. So sometimes if I'm going through something, I'll I'll talk about it in a short story, and I'll get really in depth without actually telling the reader exactly what is bothering me. And maybe they can figure it out from piecing things together. But the idea is to experience that emotion with me. And so a lot of the stuff from my own personal experiences. So not so much family, but yeah, so more personal.
I like that.
For me, with the horror stories, I don't relate to any of it like on a personal level. It's just like bizarre shit that I came up with and just put down on paper that I cannot really relate to. Like it's like the characters, like the one in this book is like, I don't really relate to this girl, but I think she's great. She's not somebody I know or relate to. But like it's a little different in my sci-fi stories. In my novel that I'm trying to finish, like I take a lot of real life experiences and then that I think are funny or people that I know kind of, and I take what's funny about them, like their foibles or their weird crap or if they're assholes or whatever, and then I'll kind of incorporate that kind of thing into the book, even if it's more like characterizing or caricaturizing them a little bit, you know, for comedic exploitation. But
it's great though.
Yeah, so
just wait till you read his story.
Yeah, that book is like, it's about an alien and it's really about humans from the alien's perspective, I think is maybe one way to look at it. And so it's in a lot of ways, it's like draws a lot of information from Hitchhiker's Guide, where it does criticize humans through the eyes of aliens. It's like, this is weird. Why do you do this? And it's like, I don't know. Never thought about it, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll definitely beta read for that. That sounds like an awesome concept. Well, my God, that's awesome. I'm sorry. I like love getting into these like little things that then I'll start like thinking myself as like, oh man, that would be awesome to kind of like have this little short story and these little things. Because I'll tell you, I'm 100% in the camp that I 1000% put just like things that not just experiences, but like people, you know, little interactions. I went to school in Boston. That's my favorite place to like live in, like the whole city. I've always lived in the city.
Ooh, I love Boston.
Oh, love Boston. Love Boston. Wentworth for life. Go Leopards. But when just like interactions like that, I can't tell you the amount of times that I was just like my God, just crazy drunk at like 3 o'clock at like 3 a.m. with like a group of friends just walking through a park, and then like some random hobo would say that one line that you just like, wait a minute, what? And it would almost take you out of it with how actually philosophical what he like the thing that he just said. And it's like, what the hell? Like the things that you can learn from just like the smallest little but then again, it also goes into like the person. There's I don't know if you've seen like the unfortunate series, the unfortunate events
series of unfortunate events
on the series on Netflix. There's a quote that I love that is talking about there's some people that can read the back of a macaroni and cheese box and like derive like the philosophical like the whole, you know, the philosophy of the entire universe, and there's other people that can read War and Peace and think that it's nothing more than a military fanfic. And I love that because it's just 100% true. There's people that can sit down and look at like leaves, like look at like a leaf, leaves being blown off in like the dead of winter, and see that one green leaf that like is resilient, and they can just like derive all philosophy off that, and just like think about the tenacity of humans, and how like just like understanding like what foliage is stress. Like the reason like a plant changes colors is because it's literally like that's literally it almost going Super Saiyan, being like, nah, motherfucker, I'm not leaving this tree. And then it finally turns brown and it can't hold on anymore, and then it falls off. But so when you see that one green leaf that just like won't die, it's like, man, it's like you can almost like derive a lot of things like that. But then you have a person like my sister that just like blows by all that shit. Like, well, who gives a fuck?
I really want to talk more about.
I got things to do.
Because like, that leaf is still gonna die. But you know what? Hold on, pal, because you're still gonna die. But
let's see what happens.
Well, man, God, that's why you gotta love it. Because I know for my first thing, I literally took for my first the book, I took two personalities of myself, extremed them to the highest degree, and split them in half basically. And that's how like how like the book is like the time like I don't know. It just seemed kind of like simple. And then after that, the characters, I kind of created them to just like fit almost like a plot point. But then I was able to inject it with like, I don't know, things I just wanted to see, and like different things. Like, oh, this kind of reminds me of a different person, things like that. So it's awesome that like, just the whole writing aspect of it that we both see in that type of way.
Yeah.
So we talked about film. We talked about thing. Did we go into music? No. Yeah, that's something that I always like kind of like to end the podcast with. How do you guys feel about the incorporation of like music within literature?
You're like with where some more contemporary books have added in like lyrics. Is that what you mean?
Oh, well, that too, but I mean more of like Hunger Games has a good example of it, where they'll put like a direct passage of a song in there, and then they'll like the character will deconstruct that. Like there's like a song in there. There's like something
Hanging Tree.
The Hanging Tree, and then the character kind of destructs that, like saying that like when she was a kid and didn't understand that song, she kind of just like liked the melody, but and she grew to understand. She understood how deep and depressing the song was, and just like things like that. I loved that. And I can't say I've been able to do it, and I can't even say that I've even attempted it yet. But it's something that I love seeing it. I think it's just phenomenal. What about you guys?
Well, I think in literature, like I don't necessarily use songs, but I use a lot of poetry in my book, and fake poetry and real poetry, and fake poetry as in like I make it up like there's a real poet when there's not. And poetry is lyrical. It's just there should be a rhythm to it. But actually, the Hunger Games, I only read the first book, but this is it the second movie?
Yes.
When they sing that song and they're at the lake, that is probably my favorite scene of all of those movies. And I really like those movies. And it's like it gives me chills just thinking about like how cool that part is when she's singing that hanging tree. I remember the lyrics, but
are you?
And
yeah.
That's and then it's like, I think is it right before they go and blow up a dam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
As the song builds up, and the people are running into oh my god, no.
And they're getting mowed down.
Yeah.
They keep going. Gosh, that is like
that's
so good.
Yeah,
that's some good stuff.
Susan Collins knocked out that trilogy in a year and a half. What the fuck, right? Man, so just the ability of some people are just insane, man.
Yeah, I've been working on my novel for 10 times that, because it's been like 15 years or more now.
Exactly.
I'll get to it.
It's crazy. It's crazy how things like go like that. Oh man, I also wanted to ask. I should have started the podcast. How did you guys find each other? How did that come to be? Like, I would have never thought of like well, I've thought of like working on like a movie script with a person, but I've never thought of like working on like a book. I always feel like a book is like such a like a almost like a personal thing. It's like almost like a love letter that you write to your audience, of like almost what we talked about is that you draw inspiration of things that you like from a genre that you like, and you almost like make a love letter to it and you ship it out. Like, how did you
Maybe
come together
should
to do that?
I take this one, Liz?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, she's laughing already. Okay, so I hired Liz to be my house cleaner slash nanny to help me with my kids and everything. And we became like immediate best friends, and it was like, oh wow, you're in editing too? That's great. Maybe you can help me with stuff. And then she told me about, we were just talking and we kind of became friends. And then she was telling me about her poetry thing that she was hosting on Saturday. I'm like, oh, I love poetry. So I went to that and I joined her writing group. And then she told me about this anthology thing that she was working on. And she's like, she was almost finished with the authors, but she's like, oh, I can make room for one more maybe. And so I joined and I offered my story, and she's like, oh, this is really good. And then I helped editing, and we worked on it a lot for like a year. And there were others involved too, of course, but like we got to work really close. And then we kind of joked around about this idea of like, well, maybe we should start a company and be partners. And then I think last summer, whenever it was, Liz was like, let's do it. Let's really make a company. And so we sat down and we made it official. And now we have an LLC together. So, is that right? Did I get the details right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Having that LLC, yeah. It's just, I know books are personal, but that's coming from a journalist background too. There's, as a journalist, as an editor in journalism, because I would also edit with reporters, but you work on the stories together. Sure, there's like different things, like you'll have someone write a quick thing for the web or something, but usually you're in the newsroom talking with everyone else, going, hey, I've got a story. What do you guys think of me working on this? And so it's always a collaboration, and I've always really liked that. And obviously I'm working on my own novels, I'm my own personal stuff, but even still, I'm always excited to have like, critiques or someone to, like with Jonathan and me, we both like, because we're both editors, we can like barter each other's services, so it's like I can edit his stuff, he can edit mine, and that so it stays fair, but it's like that idea where it's like it's this collaboration. It's something, it's a partnership, and yeah, I don't know, and it's more fun than doing it alone. Doing business stuff alone is it's fine, but it's just, it's like traveling alone, which I've done, where it's like it's fun and I'll do it again, but there's this thing you miss out on when you travel alone. Even if you meet other people around, you don't have that same like, oh, hey, remember that place we traveled to 2 years ago? You don't have that same memory. So it's just different.
Like watching a movie.
Yeah, you're watching a movie like, too. Yeah.
I watch Black Mirror by myself, and that's fine. But then having someone to talk about it, it's like that shared experience. Like, oh man, in this part where this thing happened,
Yeah. My God, you basically just wrote like a horror. You just wrote a short story horror right now, because like I'm going through that, and I like fully understand what you're talking about. That analogy of like going, because I moved around a lot since I was a kid. That was like all my life. I was hopping on airplanes alone since I was like, I don't know, like 11. But like when the first time I hopped on a plane with a friend, revolutionary. It's fun. Game changer. It's like it went from like it being like a chore and being like, oh fuck me, I gotta do this whole thing. Especially just waiting in the airline, dude. Waiting in an airline for an hour and a half. Waiting in an airline for an hour alone, 15 minutes alone is murder. When you're there with a friend, I remember I didn't even have a phone. I remember I had an 18-hour layover. I'm not lying at all. Our phones were dead, and we were in Houston. And for whatever reason, they had like this like thing that after 11, the airport closed and you couldn't leave. But if you were in there, like you couldn't leave to get out food or like a hotel. But it didn't open until 7, and our flight left at 6. So even if we left, it was like one of those things like, how is that a law? Like,
weird.
yeah. So we had to, and everything was closed. There was no food, so we were literally frozen, like like using our jackets. But I'm telling you, 18 hours never passed so quickly because you were there with friends, and then vice versa. You're there like alone for like an hour, and you're there. It's like murder. So yeah, definitely what you're saying, that whole LLC thing, because like Neotino, I started Neotino about like a couple months ago now, and just that whole thing is just crazy. But luckily, we're starting to get like sponsors and things like that, so it's like there's a little bit of a breathing room, but still, I mean, my God.
Yeah, exactly. So we work so well together because we have similar skills, but we also have different skills, so we can like we can focus on different things and get more done, which is really beneficial for the company and us too. But.
Yeah, that's all. And you seem to like really have just like actual like shared interests outside of just like literature, which is like awesome, right? You guys can like play video games and shit, go to movies. Man, it has been a phenomenal talk with you two.
It's been great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been real fun. If you guys ever want to come back and talk more about collective fantasies, when that's a little bit more, if you just want to talk about whatever, I'm telling you, this was mad fun. We'll keep on wrapping up a little bit more after it's all wrapped up. But just a quick little thing, we are officially sponsored now. It's just I got this package a little bit after like I got this package like an hour before we started recording, so I wasn't able to do the whole thing. But One Audio, I'll open this tomorrow. They do professional headphones, really good like professional quality for like a reasonable price. Check them out, oneodio.com. Check them out. We have I'll start posting like the whole like promo codes and all that, affiliate plans. But that is the end of the podcast. Elizabeth, Jonathan, absolute pleasure. Can you give the awesome. Collective Darkness out now and Little Darkness both out now? Kindle Unlimited, Amazon. Are there anything else? Are they on Readsy, or is it Kindle has that licensing thing?
It's on just Kindle. But if you the printed one on our website, and it'll be a sign.
And an audiobook coming soon. We're working on it right now.
Audiobook, motherfuckers, coming soon. And website editing me 2e's.com.
I post my book reviews there, so watch out.
Oh yeah, and
book classics and all that.
And you said you have you said something about YouTube. Do you have a YouTube channel where you post the book reviews?
No, currently we're doing the book reviews mostly when they're a video on Instagram. We will branch out into YouTube, but not yet.
Yeah, I hear you. You have to have a really good computer to like do it, the editing thing. I have a good build, and I got to get some better stuff myself so I can get some better equipment in there. But well, speaking of that, Instagram, Twitter, where can people find you?
On Instagram, find me on Elizabeth Suggs. That's SU. G as in George, G as in George, S, kind of like Uggs with an S in the front. Elizabeth Suggs, author. And then on Instagram, Elizabeth Ann Suggs on Facebook, and then Elizabeth A. Suggs on Twitter. And then editing me on, Facebook. If you just like look up groups, with a big group there. On Twitter, and then it's also on Instagram, but there's a period between editing and me, so just watch out for that.
It's like so many.
What about you, Jonathan? Where can people find you?
I've got all kinds of crap, but the big one for me is probably Instagram. So that'd be illusions with an A _ grandeur _ So, and that's where you can find me. Most of the time.
Yeah. Absolutely, just phenomenal speaking with you, both of you. Is there anything else you needed to plug? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, all right. This has been great, though. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. This is the end of the podcast. Check us out at Allegory of the End. Twitter is official Neotino. Reddit is official Neotino, but _ between official and Neotino. A.R.'s Tales, A.R.T podcast. It's been a pleasure. I'll check with you guys next week. Later.
Bye.